The journey at Roundglass is really to help you curate your best practices for well-being. And today, as we celebrate World Meditation Day, we honor the importance of relationships. Our next guests will guide us to understanding how to nurture relationships. Amy Blankson and Dr. Bobo Blankson will share their secrets to a happier, healthy relationship and a mindful practice within that to all of us. Amy is the founder and CEO of the Digital Wellness Institute, and Dr. Blankson, Bobo Blankson, is a pediatrician who sees the whole patient. So let's start with, what's the secret to a happy relationship? 20 years and counting. 20 years is a definite expert. So I'd love you to share your secrets with all of us.
Well, the secret is there's no secret. And we spend a lot of time just getting to know each other over the last 20 years. And I feel like one of the biggest secrets is just trying to get to know this person deeper and deeper each day, each month, and each year.
I also think that when we talk about having a nurturing relationship, a happy marriage, a happy relationship of any sort, really, it's not really about always being happy. Sometimes it is about finding a path towards happiness together as we go along. And for us, I think that has been an ongoing journey and something that evolves over time as we learn what makes each other happy. What are those elements that really keep the other person engaged and being their best selves? And I think that if we are on that path together, that is a good thing. The ancient Greeks used to define happiness as the joy we feel striving after our potential. And so rather than always trying to be happy as a family, our goal, especially as parents, is to really help move our children and each other along towards that place of greater happiness long term.
Yeah, just the fact that over the course of 20 years, relationships change, right? It was amazing having this honeymoon period of being married without kids. And then all of a sudden we introduce 1, 2, and 3. And each time our relationship just changes a little bit more. And understanding the needs and wants of those other people now part of this family just make it so much more rich, right? So the family itself is an organism, right? A living and breathing organism, but it's an organism made up of several different pieces, each individual. So really finding happiness means each individual part has to find happiness as well.
Yeah. Well, so many things come to mind when you're speaking that I'm going to try to break it down and take it one thing at a time. The first thing I want to highlight from what you're saying is the person that you're working with, that you're living with, that you're interacting with. It's kind of like what I get from what you're saying is allow them also to experience themselves and grow in a way that they want to, and that space where they can be who they are, and you sort of engaging with that space to learn more and more about each other every day. I think that's a really crucial piece to highlight. And from what you said also, Dr. Bobo, you said that all the, it's a living organism and everything comes together, and now the interaction of those, it really foretells of an open mind, because people are changing, as you're saying, in so many different ways. So first, space for your own change, and second, space in the relationship to allow and nourish yourself in that change as well. You've already touched on something so great that I want you to simplify that once more for people. Like, how do you find that space within yourself to be truly authentic with who you are, and not be afraid that it's going to be rejected in any way? I think that's like one of the most crucial elements that we should really talk about.
Well said. I think as we all change, the world has changed us in so many ways, particularly during the pandemic. And we see that as those moments have changed us, we have to allow space for each other to process what's going on in the world, how it shapes us, and who we want to be in the future. And so much of that requires a lot of conversation. It requires a lot of listening and really being flexible to support someone when they're in the middle of figuring it out and may not have it all figured out quite yet too.
That is so easily said by you. and so loaded for people. Like, what does listening really mean? Like, what is listening to your partner, to your children, to other members in your family? What is that? What is that complete attention when it comes to listening? I'd love you guys to share how that plays out for you.
I feel like it can be really challenging in this day and age, with digital devices, with, school, with everything going on. It's very easy to be distracted, and really trying to find that space to unplug, unwind, and focus on each other. I know I can be so guilty of it, and I appreciate that we have developed relationships in our family where we can call each other out on it. I think one of the things I said to you once when you asked me something, and I said to you, Amy, I hear you, but I'm not listening. I mean, I just acknowledged that the words were coming in. I was processing the words, but I was not listening.
Yeah.
And I felt, sad about that, and I apologized.
Yeah.
And
it's difficult.
Oh, it is so difficult. And I think with all of the devices in our families now, that one of the things that we caught ourselves doing in our family is that we might be sitting in the living room together. Everyone might be on a device doing something, and someone would walk into the room and no one would even look up from their device. And so we made a rule that when someone walks into a room, that at a bare minimum, you look up and you acknowledge their presence. I think that is the starting place. It is not where I want to end up, but it certainly is a tiny practice that we can take to really start paying attention to one another and focus in on being present when we are present together.
Yeah. When I was growing up, I was very into spirituality and philosophy, and there was a person that I used to go to called Ramesh Balsekar. He's no more, but he was very profound and was known as an enlightened man, and sat in Bombay and really had these 3 chairs and discourses. And the only thing he really spoke about was peace and harmony in daily living can only be achieved if your relationships are harmonious. And even though he's talking about a philosophy where you're moving beyond yourself, and there is no me and the other, but it starts with that whole relationship that you're so aptly describing, that relationship of focus and attention, and providing that to the person that you're in a relationship with. I'm so guilty of not doing it sometimes. My daughter just yesterday or day before was like crying in bed, and I said, what's going on? And she's like, I feel you love the dogs more than you love me. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, I mean, there's no comparison. But if she's feeling this, I'm like, really? And I make sure that 9:30 to 10 o'clock, because she sleeps at 10, is the time that I spend with her. And I feel like, you're sleeping in my bed. You're 9 years old, you're co-sleeping, and you're still feeling this, which means that there may be so much more that we have to really look at that provides them with that nourishing, or, that maybe doesn't come from just spending time, but comes from what you're talking about, which is really, truly listening. I'd love for you to share an experience that you've had, if you've seen how you've put mindfulness in action to sort of sidestep and correct your steps and strategies towards beautiful parenting.
Ooh, that's such a good question. One of the things that we have been trying to do in the morning, our children are going to a new school this year. And so we have a pretty long commute driving to school. And so we started to implement something called future forward gratitudes and then evening gratitudes. So future forward gratitudes, you start your day when we're on that long commute to school, and we always ask them, what are you excited about today? And they know if they give us a one-word answer, we're going to ask more questions. So they better come up with a good answer the first time. So we'll ask them, what are you excited about? It gives us an opportunity to forecast and hear what's going on through their day. Maybe if there's things they forgot about, it's a great time to check in on that. But it also provides us the opportunity at the end of the day that we have that touch point with them, that we can say, hey, you told me this morning that you were thinking about this, you're excited. How did that go? Was it as exciting as you thought it was going to be? Was it as nerve-wracking to take that math test that it was a big concern for you? And so they know that we're listening, but it also, as parents, gives us a little a cheat book in a way to be able to have a window into their worlds that's authentic and gives us something to talk about when teenagers are notorious about not wanting to elaborate on their answers.
Absolutely.
As parents, I relate to this so much. I make it a point to drop my 14-year-old to school every day, and he's sitting in the car with me, and he's got his phone out, and he's like doing TikTok, and I'm like, "Excuse me, am I your chauffeur? Am I sitting here to take you to school because I really want to spend that time with you, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And in some parts of the world, you don't get that opportunity to take the child to school because it's compulsory to put them on a bus. So
Right.
it's really important. And I want you to share sort of building blocks, whatever they may be, small little tips like you're already giving. Like, now I don't know if people really sit on the dining table together and have meals. And I don't really know what the new world order is. What people consider, dystopia and like dystopian novels is like actual reality today, with like streets were empty, people were afraid of each other. Like a lot of things really shifted in these 5 years. And how have you kind of like, and 5 years, because it was already, the online world was already taking over, and then the pandemic hit, and then like all the stuff that happened and is still happening. But what are some of the strategies that common day practices that we can adopt, like simple practices that we can adopt to really nurture the relationships we have in our family?
Yeah, if we think of our families as these soil and fertile ground that we need to water, I tend to think of having these three pillars, a physical pillar, a mental pillar, and maybe a spiritual / emotional pillar, right? And I think in each of those we can spend a little time, right? Where it comes to physical, one of the things I love most in these last few years was this pandemic started and told us we needed to spend more time with our families or outside. So we exercised more, we took walks more, we did so much more physical activity together as a family, family bike rides. And I felt that really nurtured our relationship. When we got too far ahead and the 9-year-old was far behind, we had to slow down so that she could catch up. And that's one way that we showed that we loved her and cared about her. But we really used that physical component to really build our family. I think from a mental standpoint, I love that we've already talked about things like growth mindset, but recognizing where each person in the family needs to grow and can grow, and helping them get to their best self has been so fun. Whether it's my family supporting me learning Japanese, just for fun, and letting me go get lessons and stuff, like sort of just investing in each other and saying, hey, I see you trying to grow. How can I help you and support you in that? And then the spiritual and emotional, just really being present. And I think that Amy's already touched on that. This morning, my daughter was going to play a tennis match, and she asked me about going to the grocery. And, I was very open and authentic with her. And I said, hey, Anna, based on the things that have happened in our world very, very recently, a tragedy in Buffalo where people were shot, I was so sad. And I told her, hey, Anna, I'm a little bit nervous about going to the grocery. I just have this feeling. And she just was so calm. This 15-year-old and was like, hey, Daddy, I get it. And just knowing that she understood and heard me just meant so much to me. So I think really being vulnerable, and I think that's hard to do sometimes as parents to our kids, really just opens up doors for them to be vulnerable with us.
Yeah, you talk a lot about mutual submission with your patients, and how I think that's an example of how you're doing mutual submission, and how we can really make ourselves vulnerable in those moments that typically, I think maybe a generation, 2 generations ago, you wouldn't show that kind of vulnerability because you want to be the authority. But relationships with our children are changing so much, and maybe share a little bit about what you do in your practice with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the core parts of my practice is really getting to know a patient, right? I specialize in teens and young adults, and they can sniff out within the first 1 minute whether you're authentic. Are you real? Are you really going to talk to me? So in a 30-minute visit where I can maybe do the diagnosis in 5 minutes, or less, I can spend 20 to 25 minutes really getting to know that teenager, that young adult, and making them feel comfortable about the care that I'm going to provide. So I know everything about them and they know everything about me, so that when I give advice, it's coming from a place of real love and care. And I think that works in families too.
And so from your experience, the families are involved and appreciate the integrative medicine practices that you prescribe to your patients, is it?
Yeah, they really do. I often find that the parents are taking notes as I'm talking the
Wow.
patients through these healthy habits. I talk about healthy habits and happy habits, and I really focus on the balance of sleep and diet and screen time and exercise. And the parents are furiously writing down, these tips. Oh, these are good. These are good, And then I'll go into some of the stuff that I learned from Amy about, journaling and gratitude and acts of kindness and meditation. And it's like a light bulb is going off in the parent's mind, as if, wow, if I don't model these myself, how can I teach my own kid? If I'm not exercising, if I'm not meditating, how can I expect my teenager to do this as well?
Yeah. But I really do want to highlight one thing, that your power, in a sense, because you are an authority when a child comes to you. And I've experienced this with my child. I'm like, that's unhealthy for you. You shouldn't be eating that. Can you try to switch that around? Or maybe you need to exercise a little bit. You want to come out with me? And I'm a tennis player too. So I'm like, can you do this? Nothing worked. I took him to the doc, right? He's like, I'm not feeling well. I'm like, okay, great. Let's go see the doctor. Doctor says, you need to eat better. You need to exercise a little bit more because, you're a teen. You need to get out there a little bit, get off your screen time because your eyes are going to start hurting, and simple things, right? Which I've been saying forever.
Right.
Suddenly, in a minute, transformed, the power that you have. I'm like, if I could just get some of those, right? But they listen, because I'm not encouraging it with my child, but because I've been doing it all my life. And I'm like, now just watching the fact that he's going out there and making his protein shake before he works out, and getting out there and getting his daily dose of running. And I'm like, what? One trip to you.
Trip. Yeah. And I think that some of that has to do with how we as parents are also, even though we can give advice, we're also responsible for punishment and consequences, right? So
Yeah.
the fact that they can come to a provider like me and, I can't really punish them if they don't do it. I think that frees them up to listen a little bit more, because I'm not going to scold them. Hey, this is what's best for you. You're coming to me as a consultant, as an advisor, and I'm trying to give you advice to help you have a fuller and better life.
Yeah, that's amazing. I want to have the sort of people who've tuned in really experience a demo from you, where you can walk us through a meditation or a mindfulness practice that's really had a profound impact on your life.
One of the practices that we thought about prior to the session was really a moment that we had. I believe it was at our 5th or maybe our 10th anniversary, when we got to go to a retreat, and we were taught the practice of taking 1 minute to look each other in the eye. And you don't say anything typically. You're just looking into each other's eyes deeply. And so we wanted to take the moment to model it for you, to have you maybe think about doing it with somebody else who might be watching as well. And even though it's a little bit awkward looking in someone's eyes, there's so much we have to learn. So we're going to try it here for you here for a second, live on camera. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that I think what really lends this practice power is that the person is being seen. Mm-hmm. And I think that we all want to be seen.
Yeah.
So, taking a beat to look into somebody's eyes and really see them makes such a world of difference. And I think when we do this with our kids, they feel seen. I think that they laugh a little bit, and sometimes it's kind of funny and entertaining to them. But really, by the end of it, you're trying to look for that person's best self. And I think that they see themselves in your eyes, and they see how much you love them and care about them. And it means the world.
It does. I think that when you look in someone else's eyes that deeply, you're conveying trust, you're conveying vulnerability. A lot of emotions that we can mask or hide with our behavior, you can't hide so well with your eyes. So there's a lot that emerges. There's a lot that helps you to really slow down and be patient, because you're paying attention and you're not looking at a device. You really get each other's full attention. And it feels funny, it feels joyful at times, but it's also just such a practice for learning about each other and being mindful.
Yeah, I mean, it really is like joint meditation in a sense, right? We're just here with each other,
as long as we're not upset with each other, right?
That's right.
It works much better when you're in a good place.
It
But it can also be a great strategy if you're not in a good place to maybe take a moment to understand, because you can convey a lot of things, whether hurt or sadness or loneliness and isolation also can come through the eyes. And when you do this practice on a regular basis, you can tell the difference between when someone's doing well, when they're doing well, or when they need maybe a little bit more attention and time. And it comes back to this moment of really setting aside 1 minute. We all have 1 minute in our day to just give our loved ones our full attention. And what an easy and beautiful practice to do.
That is beautiful. I want to thank both of you for being here. It's been such a delight, not only to hear you, but also to experience your connection with each other. I think that in itself is a lesson. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us. Thank you so much.